Welcome to We Don't Color on the Dog podcast. Several big jury verdicts this week. Yesterday, Meta and YouTube were hit with a $60 million verdict for a young woman who claimed that she was addicted to Instagram and YouTube as a child. It comes the day after an even bigger verdict, $375 million in New Mexico. That order involved how Meta endangered children. Someone that's on the forefront of these kind of lawsuits is Emmy Paulus with the Levin firm. Emmy, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
This is good news for you.
This is excellent news. I mean, this is a landmark verdict, the one out of Los Angeles Superior Court. You know, we were sitting waiting on pins and needles to get the verdict. The jury deliberated for over a week, and it was such an exciting day for everyone that's, worked, over the years on this litigation, just to, finally see a plaintiff have their day in court and get this great verdict. So it was really, really inspiring, and really, everyone was really ecstatic to see this happen.
Now, Emmy, what are some of the practices that y'all have uncovered during the discovery period about Meta and platforms like?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that we've uncovered through discovery and kind of what we anticipated that we would going into the litigation is that the social media platforms in general were very well aware of what was happening and how their platforms were negatively impacting youth that was using it. This is something that internally the companies were looking at. They were researching, doing their own independent evaluations and surveys. So this wasn't a surprise to them. This is something that they knew, but failed to do anything about and just kept on proceeding without really providing any sort of safeguards that would protect kids using the platforms. And they were doing this to help accelerate engagement because engagement ultimately led to profitability for the social media companies.
Yeah, and what is a little bit crazy about this is that Meta started with Facebook, and it was originally sort of kind of like a college yearbook. It was only for college students. It was done on campuses, a few campuses, and it was a chance to maybe kind of scroll through and get to know your classmates, or and maybe find dates, maybe find friends groups. And then it began very quickly to get out of the college setting, and then they started adding the other elements, Instagram, things that really play to all age groups as far as scrolling and keeping you on the system as long as possible.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I think, kind of this trajectory of how all of that came to fruition is, the platforms realized that there was a significant interest and there's a thought process behind how can we monetize this, right? Look at all these people that are flocking over to our platform. Obviously, it's getting a lot of attention, and what can we do to monetize this attention? And that's when you see advertising become an element of their business model. And advertisers want to have their ads be distributed and seen by the mass, right? That's their goal. And so, quickly you saw how these companies kind of shifted their business model to focus more on engagement, right? Not more on like the yearbook style, like you explained a moment ago, but more on like, well, what can we do to drive engagement? How are we going to keep people more on these platforms so they're seeing more of these advertisements, so they're interacting with these advertisements? And that's when you saw these engagement features. So the platforms started slowly changing and adding these engagement features without like a natural stop. So the infinite scroll, the push notification, things that would keep the algorithms, and they're getting more and more sophisticated with time. But all of these, the end purpose of these features was to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. And, this is really damaging for youth, right? Because they just don't have the same impulse control that an adult does. And even as an adult, you probably had moments where you're on social media and then you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just do at the last 20 minutes of my life? Now think about a kid, right? A kid that is not even able to comprehend it the way that an adult is. It is just a perfect breeding ground for them to get hooked on these products. And that was ultimately kind of a goal that social media companies accomplished. And then we see the trickle effect of how this is affecting youth with all of, the mental harm that they're experiencing as a result of their continuous use of social media.
Facebook has been around for over 2 decades. Why has it taken this long to get a verdict like this? What were some of the things that made it difficult for y'all to get to this point?
Lots of legal hurdles, especially Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which essentially, social media platforms treated that as a blanket immunity, that you cannot sue them for the content of what is being published on their platforms. And that was an uphill battle for several years, a lot of litigation before this verdict that kind of paved the way to get us to where we are today. Essentially, we had to reframe how we look at these cases and really focus on the features and the design of the platform and how these features and how these designs are harmful and how they're addictive. And that got us to where we are today. It's kind of the change in the approach of how we approach this type of litigation against big tech companies.
Did they try to claim trade secrets? What they were, their algorithms, the way they processed information as being a trade secret that they shouldn't have to reveal?
Well, yes, to a certain extent. There's multiple defendants that are involved in this litigation. For this particular trial, we had Google and we had Meta, but overall, there's litigation against TikTok and Snapchat, and so there is this issue of trade secrets, and it's how you conduct the discovery and making sure that that information is limited to a particular defendant and not shared across the board amongst the other defendants, because that's their proprietary information. So there was a little bit of having to navigate around that.
In looking at these type of cases and in watching your firm over the years, it's getting these first verdicts that sort of put the hole in the dam, where that they're all the time that y'all have invested in these, in the research, in the discovery, and all the smaller trials coming over the different rulings you need to have. There's a incredible investment on y'all's part, but it's got to be encouraged. Okay, we've got this one. How's that feel?
No, it feels great, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we've been very passionate about this litigation and really adamant about having, social media companies be held accountable for the harms and for the design of their platforms. And so, we've worked really hard to get to where we are, and we feel really proud and empowered for being able to be a voice for so many young kids that have been harmed as a result of their use of social media. So it definitely feels good.
So what's the next step? Where do we see things going from here, Emmy?
Well, there's several more trials lined up. So, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are trials, more personal injury trials lined up in Los Angeles. The school districts also have their own claims that will be tried in federal court, also in California, and that will be occurring in June of this year. The state AGs also have claims against these social media platforms that are also set for trial this summer. So it really is a synergistic effect, and you're going to see, the social media companies really having, all of these angles, coming at them, the schools, the states, personal injury plaintiffs. So there's going to be definitely a lot of momentum in terms of litigation in the near.
Well, I'm going to lean on you as these verdicts come out and the rulings happen. I'll definitely get back with you on it, because I'm fascinated.
That.
I'm fascinated with this because it is, I've got grandkids. I watch what happens when they get on a laptop, and they can get buried in YouTube videos pretty quickly. And that you can just with adults, you and I can go to restaurants and look around and how many people are on their phones and they're scrolling. They're not reading emails. It's that addictive for a lot of people.
Exactly. Yeah, you see it everywhere. And I'm glad that through litigation, we're able to bring awareness to this cause. I think that's really very powerful.
Emmy, thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for watching, and to keep up with what's going on, be sure and subscribe. Just click on the little dog to the right and click the subscribe button. You can also like this video and click on the bell, which will notify you of new content. This really helps the channel grow. We appreciate you.